Good morning. I'm now going to read you a little bit more of Ratburger. We are on chapter 22, which is Free Spit. It was only when she looked at her reflection in the shop window that Zoe realised that, like Tina and Sheila, she was also covered from head to toe in dust. She had wondered why passers-by had been giving her funny looks and why children in pushchairs burst into tears when they saw her and were wheeled by their pregnant mothers from her path. Wiping the dust off her little plastic watch, she saw it was nearly lunchtime. Bert's van would be parked outside the school playground as it always was, frying up its noxious burgers. The dust had gone right down the back of her throat and Zoe was desperately in need of a drink, so she made a short pit stop. Ding! "Ah, Miss Zoe," exclaimed Raj. "Is it Halloween already?" No, spluttered Zoe. "It's, Mufti Day at school, you know, where you can wear whatever you like." Raj studied the small, dusty girl. "So forgive me, but what have you dressed as?" "Dust Girl." "Dust Girl?" "Yes, Dust Girl. She is a superhero, you know." "I have never heard of her." "She's very popular." "Dust Girl, eh? So, what is her superpower?" inquired Raj, genuinely curious. "She is very good at dusting," replied Zoe, now desperate for the exchange to come to an end. "Well, I must look out for her. I wonder if any of you will choose to come as Dust Girl as your superhero on Comic Relief Day." "Yes, I think they are bringing out a Dust Girl movie next year." It is sure to be a blockbuster," replied Raj, clearly not 100% convinced. "People do love to watch someone doing the dusting. I know I do." "Raj, please can I have a drink?" "Of course, Miss Zoe, anything for you. I've got some bottles of water there." "Just tap water would be fine." "No, I insist. Take a bottle from the chill cabinet." "Well, thank you." "My pleasure," smiled Raj. Zoe made her way from the counter and selected a small bottle of water. She downed most of it, then washed her face clean with the remainder. Instantly, she felt a whole lot better. "Thank you, Raj. You're so good to me." "You are a very special little girl, Miss Zoe, and not just because you are ginger. Please can you pass me the empty bottle, Miss Zoe?" Trampling dust through his little shop, Zoe returned the bottle to Raj, and he took it off behind the multicoloured plastic curtains to the back. Zoe could hear a tap running, and a few moments later he reappeared to pass the bottle back to her. "If you could pop it back in the cabinet, please," he said with a smile. "But it's covered in dust and it's got my spit all around the top." "And the beauty of the scheme, my friend, is there is no extra charge for the spit," said Raj triumphantly. Zoe looked at the newsagent and then dutifully returned the bottle to where she had taken it from. "Goodbye, Raj." "Goodbye, Dust Girl, and good luck." Ding! Now Zoe felt a tiny little bit like she was a superhero, albeit one with special power, whose special power was dusting. However, just like a superhero, she was fighting evil. Powering down the street, a trail of dust behind her, Zoe soon spotted Bert's van. It was parked where it always was, outside the school playground, and there was a line of eager children queuing down the road. Approaching from the side, she saw that the van was emblazoned with "Bert's Pest Control." "That's curious," she thought. Zoe hid behind the defaced and battered school sign and waited until the bell rang for the end of lunch break. She couldn't risk being seen at school since she was suspended. That could lead to instant expulsion. Dring! The bell finally rang and Bert served his final customer, squirting the peculiar dark ketchup onto the distinctly unappetising looking burger. Zoe scuttled across the road and hid on the other side of the van where it faced on the pavement. Looking up at the writing on this side, she saw that it read, "Bert's Burgers." "That is so strange," whispered Zoe to herself. The van said Bert's Burgers on one side and Bert's Pest Control on the other. Zoe stared at the van. The creepy man was only using the same vehicle for catching rats that he did for frying burgers. Zoe was no expert, but was pretty sure the government's Food Standard Agency would take a very dim view of this. It was going to result in an angry letter at least. The van's engine started and Zoe scampered around to the back, silently opened the door and leapt inside. She closed it as quietly as she could behind her and lay down on the cold metal floor. Then the engine started up and the van drove off, with Zoe hiding inside it. Chapter 23, the pulverization machine. At eye level, Zoe could see huge bags of rotting burgers with maggots crawling out of them. She put her hand over her mouth for fear she might scream or throw up, or both. The van hurtled through the town. She could hear it scraping against other cars and the horns of other vehicles hooting as it sped through red lights. Zoe popped her head up to watch in terror through a little window as they spread chaos and carnage in their wake, not to mention quite a few broken off wing mirrors. Bert was driving so recklessly, she was frightened he would kill them both. The van was travelling so fast that in no time they were on the outskirts of town in a large deserted industrial estate. Enormous empty warehouses that looked like they were falling down blotted out the sky, and soon the van stopped outside a particularly dilapidated one. Zoe looked up out of the fat splattered window. This warehouse was like a gigantic aircraft hangar. Zoe took a deep breath and everything turned dark as Bert drove the van inside. As soon as it lurched to a halt, she climbed out of the back and hid under the van. Trying to breathe as quietly as possible, she looked around the giant space. There were cages and cages of rats all piled up on top of each other. It looked like there were thousands of them in there, waiting to be pulverised. Beside the cages was a tank of cockroaches with a sticker that simply read, "Ketchup." "I'm so glad I never ate one of Bert's burgers," thought Zoe. Even so, she still felt really sick. In the middle of the warehouse was a dirty old stepladder that led up to a massive machine. This must be his pulverisation machine, thought Zoe. It was old and rusty and looked like it had been made out of bits from cars that had fallen apart, pieces of old freezers and microwave ovens. The whole thing was held together with sticky tape. As Zoe watched from underneath the van, Bert approached the machine. The main part of the contraption was a massive metal funnel with a long conveyor belt leading from underneath it. A huge wooden rolling pin hovered over the belt. Next, metal arms that could have been parts of old food mixers stood ready at the side. On the end of the arms were round metal tubes that looked like sawn down sections of old piping, or perhaps even parts of a lorry exhaust pipe. Here we go. That's the pulverisation machine. If the noise of the squeaking rats was deafening, it was nothing compared to the sound of the machine. As soon as Bert walked over and pulled the lever on the side to turn it on, which was actually an arm from a shop window dummy, the metal grinding noise easily drowned out the squeaks. The whole machine rattled as if it was about to fall to pieces. Zoe spied on Bert as he trundled over to a cage of rats. Bending down, he picked it up. There must have been 100 rats inside. Could Armitage be one of them? And he plodded over to the stepladder, moving gingerly because of the weight. Slowly but surely he climbed up the ladder one at a time. At the top, he paused for a moment, wobbled slightly, and then smiled a sickening smile. Zoe wanted to call out to stop him, but didn't dare reveal herself. Then Bert lifted the cage above his head and tipped the rats into the machine. They tumbled through the air to their certain death. One little rat, not much bigger than Armitage, clung onto the cage for dear life. With a sickening laugh, the evil man prized its little claws off the metal and it plunged down and down into the machine. There was then a hideous crunching sound. He really did pulverise them. Out of the bottom of the machine poured some minced meat. The meat was then flattened by a huge wooden roller before the arms plunged down repeatedly onto the conveyor belt and chopped the meat into patties. The patties then trundled along the belt before falling into a filthy cardboard box. Now Zoe really did want to vomit. Bert's terrible secret was out. Have you guessed it? Can you guess what Bert's secret was, reader? David Walliams wants you to guess as well as me. I should hope so. There is quite a big clue in the title of this book. Yes, he was turning rats into burgers. Maybe, reader, you have even eaten one yourself without even knowing. No! Screamed Zoe. The little girl couldn't help it, but disastrously, she had given herself away.